Hey everyone, I'm here with my good friend Jason Sanchez, and we are going to talk about being flexible today. And before we get into our subject today, Jason, can you give us just a little bit of a background of who you are and your ministry and leadership capacity? What are you doing with your life right now, sir?
Yes, Jason Sanchez from Puyallup, Washington, and prior to 5 years ago, I was on staff at a Calvary Chapel up there. Did the youth, worship, college, missions, bunch of stuff. And then 5 years ago, we moved down to Bachiniva, Mexico, which is 5 hours south of El Paso, Texas, and started an orphanage.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you are now an orphanage director. How many kids do you have? What's ministry like down there and different things like that about the ministry?
So currently we have 15 kids full-time, 5 boys, 10 girls. Youngest is 3, oldest is 16. We have a staff of 4 and interns, volunteers, and we're just doing our thing, man. Trying to train these kids up in the ways of the Lord, love on them, educate them. Yeah.
So in your ministry, how have you seen your plans not go according to your plans?
My plans never go according to plans, especially Mexico. That's probably been one of the hardest things because obviously coming from the United States, working at a church where you're, organized, coordinated, everything kind of has its schedule, routine, going to a third world country, and not only that, but a small town of 2,000 where nobody does anything on time or anything. They actually call it Mexico time. And so that has taken a very, very long time, even still a little bit now, 5 years later, to try to get used to and adjust to.
Mm-hmm. What have been some specific examples of you have a plan and it just doesn't happen that way?
Well, the whole culture down there is nobody's ever in a hurry. Nobody's ever in a rush. There are not deadlines to meet. There's no, I work from this time to this time. It's just kind of, all that's sort of just off the table. So right from the get-go, even when we were looking to buy property, trying to set up meetings to buy the property. Hey, where are we going to meet? Oh, hey, let's meet in the plaza at this town at más o menos like at 11 o'clock. And then an hour, 2 hours or whatever goes by, nobody's there. So right from the beginning, it was clearly not going according to how you normally see things.
Yeah. So in your own leadership ability, how did you deal with things just being different, a different culture, and this idea of flexibility? How did you deal with it?
Well, first of all, I didn't deal with it at the beginning. I always just thought, this is wrong, this is weird, this is how you do it, this is how everybody in the States does it. So I kind of tried to fix it. So in doing so, in my effort to not to kind of become one with the culture, this new place that we're living, I went the route of just trying to make everybody be on time. And I quickly learned that that was pointless. It was tiresome. It was effortless. And so I began to then say, okay, God, you really got to help me because we're trying to get power to the orphanage. We're trying to get, water from our well. We're trying to do all these things and nothing is working in normal time. And so rather than just losing it, I was like, God, if we're going to live down here and do this, then you really got to change me personally in how to adapt to this kind of stuff because it's very, very hard and very, very frustrating.
Yeah. So why do you think as leaders we get so frustrated when our plans change?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with it's just the American culture. And so everybody, whether you work at a church, whether you work in the secular industry or whatnot, there's deadlines, there's schedules, there's normal work hours. And so that's just a part of our society. And so I think naturally that just becomes a part of what we do. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, if you're pastoring a church, your church starts at this time, it gets over at this time, you have this amount of time to do worship, and you start just scheduling and organizing thing because that's what everybody does.
Yeah.
People are going to go to the website. You don't want to go to a website for a church, and when it says start time, whenever you want to get there, end time, whenever you want to go home. Yeah, I mean, it's just normal. It's how society runs, and again, I thought this must be how everything runs in other countries.
So you've had to deal with just being flexible. And not only is on the Mexican culture side, but just in general, we as leaders have plans, mm-hmm. and because of different circumstances, people, the Lord's plan, it just doesn't sometimes fit into our plan, and things change. So how does being flexible help you lead and actually become a better leader when you have to say, hey, everything isn't going to go according to plan?
Well, number one, I think the thing we can never forget is the Bible says clearly, man's heart plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. And I feel like oftentimes we love teaching that verse, quoting that verse, sharing that verse with people, but we don't like practically dealing with it.
Yeah.
So I think for us, it's when it becomes a reality, when you're actually put in a place where, hey, I just put all this effort into this, or I just did this, and it's literally not going according to plan. I remember one time, let me give a specific example. When I was leading worship, one of our services, we couldn't get the projector and the easy worship words and all that. We couldn't get it going. And so literally up until like probably a minute or two before the service started, it just wasn't working. And I felt like, hey, it's not working. Let's just pull the plug and let's just do it like this. But there was other leaders saying, no, we got to do whatever we can. Service is about to start. So we were swapping computers, we were swapping projectors. I mean, we were doing all this stuff. So we got it to work. And by the time I got up there to lead worship, I was so distracted from everything that took place, I wasn't even able to enter into worship. So fast forward to now, being down in Mexico, power down there is horrible. And I mean, you've been down there, you know, yeah. What it's like. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's not. And so literally in church services, almost every Sunday, without fail, the power will dim, it'll work at like 50%, it'll go off, it'll go on. And nobody ever skips a beat. And there's never, no one is stressed about anything. It's just a part of things. So here, years ago, leading worship, after stressing out, trying to get something worked out so that we didn't have to be flexible in that area, I guess, to being in Mexico where you lead worship and then the power goes out and people just continue to sing and you continue to play and it's as if nothing happened.
So clearly you've had to learn as a leader, if you're going to grow, you have to be flexible. What would you say to those leaders who are struggling with the idea of being flexible and this idea of flexibility and leadership and dealing with that?
I personally think that that person would need to ask themselves, am I really a leader?
Yeah.
Do I really feel called to leading? I think in a practical way, for instance, let's take a military leader, a general or something. Sure, they have a battle plan and they have all these things organized, but once you're in the thick of it, man, if you're not, imagine not being flexible.
Yeah.
You know, something's going over here, you're being attacked over here, and if a guy's like, well, we can't move because this isn't according to our plan, no, you just do whatever you need to do. So I think for somebody, or in a business, if you have a plan and you're not growing, you're losing money, I mean, really, flexibility is a part of everything. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of how I think people view it and how they handle it and how they address it. For somebody in the church, I think it's like a no-brainer. I mean, the Bible talks about both things. Man's heart plans his ways, the Lord directs his steps, but then it also talks about the importance of planning, sitting down, counting the costs. So I think it's a healthy balance of both.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What is the role in planning in this whole idea and subject of being flexible? Does the Bible say that we are to plan? Do we just say, well, let's just be flexible and just the Lord has it together? Or do we try to put forth our effort and give that effort over to the Lord? Like, what does that look like? Where does planning fit in being flexible?
I think it's very, very important, and it fits in a lot. Again, look at some of the examples of the Bible, like when the nation of Israel, when they were leaving Egypt. You look at when God was speaking to the leaders, when they would set up their camp, there was very specifics of what you'd have to do. Mm-hmm. You guys go here, you do this, I want you to do that, I want you to do that. And then you see times like when God spoke to Abraham and he says, get up and go to a land which I will show you. He didn't say, hey, I want you to pack up your things, go here and then go there. So you got to have both in there. And for the people that would say, hey man, we're God guides, God provides, I free flow, I just go with the Holy Spirit. Yes, that is important. We understand some of those biblical foundations. But I don't think the Lord would want us to just never plan for anything and be organized for anything and just sit around and do nothing until we feel like we're led to do something, if that makes sense.
Well, in your mind, give me some examples of Jesus, the greatest leader, the one we follow. How was he flexible? Or how did he plan and how was he flexible? Are there any examples that you could think of how Jesus dealt with this subject?
Yeah, I mean, if you look throughout the Gospels, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember reading a verse that Jesus woke up in the morning and he said to his disciples, all right, here's today's agenda, and he pulls out a notepad and a paper or hands out a schedule to these guys. It was just, hey, you follow me. Hey, we're going here. Hey, we're doing this. I think of when they were moving through the crowd and Jesus felt power come away from him, and the woman with the infirmity, she touches him. Everyone's kind of like, hey, we got to get going. Jesus is like, no, we got to do this. I think of in John, I believe it's John chapter 8, when Jesus knew he needed to go through Samaria, or John chapter 4, when they have the interaction with the Samaritan woman. So he was going to go one way and then things got changed up. So I personally see, as I read throughout, Jesus was just kind of all over the map of just, we're doing this. Obviously he was God, so he knew everything. But I think you see more of a flexibility in there versus today we're doing this, and then this, and then this, and then next week we're going to do this, and then in 3 weeks we're going to hit this. I mean,
yeah. I mean, obviously there was planning because before the foundation of the earth,
he was absolutely sent. Yeah, absolutely.
He had a plan, he had a purpose. But I like that. In that, he was going to a town, there was time for interruptions, distractions, and they were opportunities to ultimately fulfill God's plan, the Father's will, and not just, oh, this is my agenda, this is what I have on the game plan. Because it sounds like you put yourself in a position, being in Mexico, moving down there, that now you're having to deal with it all the time.
Yeah.
But for us in the States, sometimes we have to forcefully put ourselves in certain situations, our accountability, so that we would grow. What are some things that we can do here in whatever leadership capacity we're growing in and doing, to just have this attitude of being flexible and setting up things in our lives where we can say, it's okay, God has a plan?
Yeah, I think there's two things. First of all, I don't think you should intentionally try to make flexibility happen, schedule meetings for wrong times and then not show up. I mean, that would just be weird.
Yeah.
But in the area of scheduling, Americans, we schedule, we go, we do. So maybe scheduling in some flex time. whether that's half of the day, first part of the morning, in the evening. I know for me, I was, when I worked at the church, you do the calendar and you schedule meetings and you set up the agenda for the year and retreats and all that stuff. And rather than stressing or doing so much effort into doing that, being open to, hey, maybe we'll wait in doing that in case something comes up. Or maybe we won't schedule this week super full, to be open to random things that might come up. The second aspect of it, I think, and probably more so for individuals, is not stressing out when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's a biblical principle. You will direct your plans, you will write things out, you will do it, and the Lord will direct your steps, and He will have the final say. Mm-hmm. And I think probably the biggest struggle for a lot of people is the stress and the worry and the anxiety when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah.
So know that it's not, and work on patience, not worrying about tomorrow, being anxious for nothing. Some of my favorite verses in Matthew and Philippians. Practice those things. Yeah, and then pray. I think pray, God, give me the spirit of flexibility. Give me a heart of being open. Oftentimes we preach that, we say that. It's easier said than done. Mm-hmm. But really desire that. Lord, I want to be stretched.
Yeah. I
want to be pulled out of my comfort zone. Lord, I literally want my plan to go according to your way. And so have your way. Thy will be done in my life. And if we're praying for that, and the Lord to give us the ability, especially for those of us that is very, very uncomfortable. Flexibility is very uncomfortable. We don't like getting out of our comfort zone, all that stuff. We don't like change, everything. Then bring that to the Lord and really pray. And I personally think, as it's doing in my life, it's probably going to strengthen you and take you to newer places with the Lord than you have before.
Yeah.
Because for us, again, being in that situation, I can't change anything, but I'm enjoying it now. I'm really learning of, okay, Lord, I can be really stressful. I can be an anxious person. I am a worrier. And the Lord is dealing with some of those things in the new place that I'm at by virtue of things not going according to plan, things always changing, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. So any last words of advice or encouragement that you would have to share on this subject?
Be flexible. And if you really want to, I think, have an understanding or an experience in that area, I would encourage you to go to another country. And that's why I'm a huge fan of mission trips. I'm a huge fan of cross-cultural stuff. And because when you go and you, for instance, Daniel, you've been to the church services in Bachiniva.
Yeah.
And you're a pastor up here. So when you go to a place and you realize, hey, the Lord is still here. He's still working. He's still moving. We're still worshiping. We're still reading. We're still studying. It kind of gives you sort of a fresh outlook, new perspective. And so I would say just be flexible. And number two, look for an opportunity to go someplace where you're going to be stretched, you're going to be pulled in that area.
Awesome. Hey, what is some contact info that people could reach out to you or know more about the orphanage and just your, whether it be email or Instagram handle or whatever?
So we have, the orphanage is called House of Blessing, Casa de Bendición, and our website is thehouseofblessing.org. And we have an awesome website which people in Redemption Church help us do. Also, we're on Facebook, Bachiniva Orphanage, Bachiniva, Bachiniva Orphanage, and then Instagram is, I think, is I don't know what our Instagram
But you can go
is.
to the website.
Yeah, go to the website, go to the Facebook. We do a blog, and you can get signed up on that through the website and everything.
Awesome, man. Well, I love the ministry and what God is doing in your life and your family's life as you're serving Jesus down in Bachiniva, Mexico. And thank you, Orphanage Director, for sharing about being flexible. I pray that you were blessed and encouraged by it. And until next time, my friends.